Okay, this is going to be an exciting one because the next generation of consoles is now official. Yes, both the PS5 as well as Microsoft's Project Scarlett / the upcoming Xbox 2 have been unveiled. We don't really have the final design of these yet, but we do know all the specs that these two would come with. And we've already done 2 videos on the next generation consoles before, one of them on the PS5 and then also a ZONEofTECH news episode covering the Xbox 2 specs. But in this one I want to put both consoles head to head and see which one will indeed be a better console. So get those snacks ready, all those drinks, everything you need for this video. And also if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and enable notifications by tapping on the bell icon for more in-depth tech videos and leaks and rumors episodes such as this one is going to be. So yeah, thank you for doing that, especially on the bell. And yeah, let's begin the video. Okay, so at the moment with the PS4 and the Xbox One, the PS4 is the market leader in terms of sales and exclusives, and then the Xbox One with the Xbox One X specifically is the market leader in terms of pure graphical performance. But it turns out that this wasn't always like that. Back when Microsoft released the Xbox 360 in November 2005 and Sony revealed the PS3 a year later in 2006, Sony already had the upper hand at performance. You see, the PS3 was not just the most expensive console yet, but it was also the most powerful console yet, sort of like an Xbox One X of 2006. It had this very unique cell processor that was way ahead of its time, and it was even used to create supercomputers, by the way, by connecting a ton of PS3s together. But since it was a completely different architecture than what the Xbox 360 used, with a more PC-like IBM Xenon processor, not to be confused with Intel's Xeon, those are two different things, game developers found it very, very difficult to program games for the PS3 since, they were completely new to the cell processor. And games actually looked way better on the Xbox 360 than on the PS3 in the first few years. And then in 2013, 8 and 7 years after the PS3 and Xbox 360 were introduced, both Microsoft and Sony unveiled the PS4 and the Xbox One. However, the story completely changed this time. So while Microsoft was focused on making the all-in-one entertainment system, Sony just wanted to focus on games. So the PS4 not only had a more traditional AMD x86-64 CPU now, finally, but it was also much more powerful than the Xbox One. It was smaller, it was lighter, and it also had an integrated power supply. And with all of these, it was also cheaper. So yeah, Sony dominated the market in this console generation with more than double the total sales when compared to Microsoft. In September 2016, Sony launched the PS4 Pro, an even more powerful version of the PS4, capable of handling 4K games with checkerboard rendering upscaling. However, a year later, in November 2017, Microsoft did the same. They announced the Xbox One X, an even more powerful version of the Xbox One, but this was also way more powerful than even Sony's PS4 Pro, offering a staggering 6 teraflops of GPU compute power versus the 4.2 teraflops that the PS4 Pro had. By the way, the original PS4 only had 1.8 teraflops, while the Xbox One had 1.3. So the performance difference between the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro was very, very significant. And because of this, the Xbox One X could do native 4K gaming at 30 frames per second in most games, and even native 4K 60 in some games, like Forza Horizon. Okay, so what about the next generation? Which one will be more powerful this time, the PS5 or the Xbox 2? Well, you see, Sony hasn't had an event for the PS5 just yet, but Microsoft did have one for the Xbox 2, and here's everything that Microsoft said. So first off, just like the Xbox One X was codenamed Project Scorpio, the next generation Xbox is codenamed Project Scarlett. So when it comes to the CPU, this is an AMD Ryzen 3000 series processor. Now to clarify, a lot of you got confused in the PS5 video, this is not the Ryzen 3, which is the AMD equivalent to Intel's Core i3 processor, but this is AMD's third generation of AMD Ryzen processors. And this one is actually coming to PC users, AMD's third generation Ryzen processors, in July 2019. Now, this is a desktop class CPU, it's not a mobile one anymore. It's based on a 7nm process, which is based on the Zen 2 architecture. And this is an 8-core CPU. Now, Microsoft hasn't really talked about the clock speed of this just yet, but it is rumored to be between 3 GHz and 3.2 GHz, and this would be a constant clock speed with no turbo on all 8 cores. So yeah, this thing will need an even more powerful cooling system than the Xbox One X's vapor cooling chamber, which is really, really good, by the way, but yeah, this one needs something even better. GPU-wise, we will have the brand new AMD Navi architecture with GDDR6 memory, as well as support for PCIe 4.0. Now, something really cool about the GPU is that it will also support real-time ray tracing. So this is a really big one. In case you don't know what this is, it means that every ray of light in the scene that an object casts will be reflected, so bounced around and reflected by other objects in the scene in order to light up the whole scene. So pretty much like the way light works in real life. And this is something that's extremely difficult to do from a computational standpoint. We currently only have it implemented in NVIDIA's new RTX series of cards, but it seems like the next generation Xbox will indeed support real-time ray tracing, which is huge, guys. This is awesome. Really excited for this. Now, Microsoft has also showed us a few trailers and gameplay of some upcoming games running on the next generation hardware, and the one that stood out to me the most was actually Microsoft's Flight Simulator. This thing looked insane, like truly next generation, especially with real-time ray tracing. I mean, wow, take a look at that. This is the next generation that I was hoping for. Amazing drawing distance and shadows, and the way the light rays are being reflected by the plane. This thing looks incredible. Pretty much looks like a photo at this point. And on top of this, Microsoft also revealed that the Xbox 2 will be able to support 8K resolution in games. Yes, 8K resolution as well as 4K in up to 120 frames per second. So Navi is looking like a huge upgrade, and it turns out that AMD has also officially unveiled the Navi architecture on stage recently. So they're actually calling this RDNA architecture instead of Navi, but yeah, this is Navi. And it is based on a 7nm process with GDDR6 memory, just like Microsoft has announced for the Xbox 2, and it actually offers 1.25 times the performance per clock and 1.5 times performance per watt when compared to the AMD Vega architecture. So that's a significant improvement. Also, AMD has officially announced support for 8K 60 and 4K 120Hz outputs on their new Navy Radeon RX 5500 XT. So yeah, Microsoft specs have already been confirmed by AMD. Now, of course, that this only refers to the output capability of the card and therefore the console. But the fact that the Xbox 2 would be able to do 8K games doesn't really mean that we'll see, 8K games or even 4K 120Hz games. Keep in mind that power is limited, and if you could pick between a current Xbox One game that runs in full 8K or a completely new game, the next generation game with incredible graphics, however, with 4K 60 output or even 4K 30, which one would you actually pick? Because honestly, I would go for the 4K 30 next generation game. But let me know in the comments which one would you pick. So it's pretty safe to say that developers will be able to achieve 4K 120 frames per second or even 8K on this machine, but they will most likely choose to invest that power into achieving better graphics in that specific game. But you expect native 4K 60 on pretty much all the games on the next generation Xbox. Microsoft has also said that a new Xbox will be 4 times more powerful than the Xbox One X, which had 6 teraflops of GPU compute power, which means that this one should have at least 24, right? Well, no, probably not. You see, even an RTX 2080 Ti has 13.4 teraflops, which would mean that the Xbox 2 would be almost twice more powerful than one of the most powerful graphics cards for PCs in the world. So what I think Microsoft meant when they said 4 times more powerful than the Xbox One X is 4 times more powerful overall in total, not just for the GPU, but CPU, the RAM, and the storage in total as well. And speaking of the storage, Microsoft has said that the Xbox 2 will feature full SSD storage finally, but it won't be your standard SATA-based SSD or even M.2. Instead, this would be a first-party custom-made storage. And this is apparently huge for Microsoft. They actually talked about the SSD more than they talked about the overall performance of the system. And apparently games will be able to load almost instantly, and in RPG games, there will be 0 loading time for when you're walking into a big city or entering a cinematic and so on. So this is huge. They're trying to bring back that old Nintendo 64 experience where games loaded up instantly with almost 0 loading times at all. And in fact, the storage seems to be so fast that Microsoft even claims that it would be used as a secondary virtual RAM module. That's crazy. So yeah, if the RAM is full but you still want to load some assets, you can have them on the SSD without bottlenecking the system at all. So that's incredible. This will be the biggest leap that any console generation has ever done before, according to Microsoft at least. Now, some of you might remember how at E3 2018, Microsoft talked about the next family of Xbox consoles. Not console, but consoles, implying that there would be more than just one single Xbox 2. We were expecting a lower-end Xbox 2 codenamed Lockhart, which we've actually seen leaked, but it seems like this has now been cancelled. At least Microsoft hasn't mentioned it at all, and I do think that this is actually the best course of action. You see, if Microsoft or Sony ended up releasing multiple consoles at the same time, it will make it extremely difficult for developers to make games for, since they would most likely have to develop the game for the most powerful console and then try to port it to lower end hardware as well. Okay, so I talked a lot about the next Xbox, mostly because we haven't made a dedicated video on the Xbox yet. So now, how does this compare to the PS5? Well, like I said before, Sony hasn't actually had an official event yet, but they did have two major announcements in terms of the PS5. So first of all, the lead system architect for the PS5, Mark Cerny, has done a few interviews and detailed a lot of the specs of the PS5, and then second, there was also a presentation that Sony has done to their investors in which they talked about the next generation of PlayStation. You can check out our full video on the PS5 linked here if you want to see all the details in that PowerPoint presentation that Sony gave to the investors. But yeah, long story short, the PS5 will have a Ryzen 3000 series processor, same as the Xbox 2. This is based on a 7nm process with the Zen 2 architecture, same as the Xbox 2, and it's going to be an 8-core processor, again, same as the Xbox 2. Now, we have seen rumored that this will be about 3.2 GHz constant clock speed, again, the same as the Xbox 2. In GPU-wise, the PS5 has the AMD Navi architecture, or Navi, which is based on a 7nm process, again, the same as the Xbox 2. Real-time ray tracing support, again, as the Xbox 2. 8K supports and 4K 120Hz as well on the PS5. So yeah, so far, spec-wise, the PS5 looks identical to the Xbox 2, and it kind of is. It basically is identical. You see, when AMD develops a brand new console CPU and GPU, they just don't try to sell that just to Sony or Microsoft, because both Sony and Microsoft want the best CPU and the best GPU available for a console. And AMD was tasked to make that by both Sony and Microsoft. However, there are a few more details that we know about the PS5 that we don't really know in terms of the Xbox 2. So first of all, there have been many reports claiming that the GPU inside the PS5 will have about 12 to 14 teraflops of GPU compute power, which is actually really similar in performance to the RX Vega 64. So that one offers up to 13.7 teraflops, and this is basically 7.77 times more powerful GPU-wise than the PS4, and 3.33 times more powerful than the PS4 Pro. So this is a massive, massive improvement. Now, obviously, this will be a Navi GPU, Navi, or the AMD RDNA architecture, basically the same thing. So it will not draw as much power, and it will also be smaller than a Vega 64. Now, in terms of how this compared to the Xbox 2 GPU, we don't really know exactly because they seem to be identical, and we don't know the teraflops of the Xbox yet, because Microsoft hasn't revealed this yet, but they will be very, very similar. Now, I've heard some reports from game developers that are working on cross-platform games for both the PS5 and the Xbox 2, saying that the PS5 is actually more powerful than the Xbox 2 by quite a bit, and it's easier to develop more high-end games on the PS5 than it is on the Xbox 2. Which it also kind of has to be. The PS5 has to be more powerful than the Xbox 2. And here's why. One of the main advantages of the PS5 and even the PS4 Pro and PS4 over any Xbox console is that the PS4 supports VR with the PSVR. So Microsoft still doesn't have this. Maybe they will announce it at some point, but at the moment Microsoft hasn't talked at all about VR. Now, the current PSVR will indeed work on the PS5. Mark Cerny has actually confirmed this himself to The Wire, but Sony's also working on a brand new PSVR, the PSVR 2, which will be a huge, huge upgrade from the current model. With a fully wireless headset, a much higher resolution display, and a reworked tracking system, as well as possible finger tracking, according to some recent patents that Sony has, the PSVR 2 will be huge, and only the PS5 will support it. So that's one advantage over the Xbox 2, and then Sony has also talked about the SSD as well. They're also making their own custom-made flash storage for the PS5, and Sony said that it will be 19 times faster than the PS4 Pro one. Now, the PS4 Pro has a hard drive, which is about 50 megabytes per second. So if you do the math, the PS5 will have a flash storage speed of about 1 gigabyte per second, which is not that much when compared to, more modern M.2 drives that you can buy for your PC. And those can get up to about 3.5 gigabytes per second. So I'm really curious to see how Sony's SSD will compare to Microsoft's. But so far, it seems to me that Microsoft will have a much faster SSD, by the way, both of which will connect via PCIe 4.0. Now, another difference between the two consoles is that Sony has announced that they will be adding 3D audio to the PS5. So basically, ray-traced audio that will apparently have a huge impact, positive impact, on immersion. However, the thing is, not a lot of people know this, but the PS4 and the PS4 Pro today support 3D audio already with the Platinum wireless headphones, which I do own a pair of. And the audio is really, really good, by the way, and it's also really immersive, so I believe that this will be an improved version of that 3D audio. Mark Cerny has also confirmed that the PS5 will also have a dedicated 3D audio chip, which will handle all of this 3D audio processing. And while both consoles will be backwards compatible, so yes, you will be able to play your PS4 games that you already own on the PS5, so that's really cool. Also, save games will also work. They can load your PS4 save games on a PS5. But Microsoft will also support Xbox 360 games on the Xbox 2, not just Xbox One games. And another advantage to the Xbox 2 is the ability to use your old accessories. So Microsoft has confirmed that the Xbox 2 will support Xbox One accessories such as controllers, hard drives, accessibility gamepads, and all the other accessories that you currently have for the Xbox One. Sony unfortunately hasn't said anything about that. And interesting enough, both consoles will still keep the disk drive, not just for backwards compatibility purposes, but also so that you can still buy physical discs if you don't have a fast internet connection. So in the end, the biggest difference between these two consoles will be in terms of two things: the exclusive games and the controllers. You see, when it comes to the exclusive games, many Xbox games already work on Windows as well, which is really cool, and vice versa. No need to buy the same game twice, and you're unifying your game library this way. So that's really awesome. However, this also means that exclusives are pretty much dead on the Xbox. Yes, there is a new Halo coming out, as well as a brand new flight simulator and a few more, but these would also work on Windows as well, which is, like I said before, both a good and a bad thing in terms of exclusives. So Sony will once again have the upper hand when it comes to exclusives. We still don't have an official list to what exclusives the PS5 will come with, but it's very likely going to be Horizon Zero Dawn 2, God of War 2, GTA 6 was actually leaked to be an exclusive for the PS5 for the first month. Not, entirely, but just for the first month, and a few more. And then when it comes to controllers, Microsoft has announced a brand new Elite controller, which comes out this November. So it makes me think that the Xbox 2 controller would look and perform very similar to that, just, bundled in. Now, on Sony's side, we've actually had a few leaks regarding the controller. This was just a developer's kit, by the way, so yeah, this is the reason why it looks so ugly and fat. But the main take from this one is that the arrow buttons, or the D-pad, has been redesigned, and we also get a full touchscreen display rather than just a touch panel. The speakers also seem to be redesigned as well, with speakers on each side now, so that's a pretty good improvement on Sony's side. And something really interesting, by the way, that Sony has said about the PS5 is that the main income generator for the next few years will not be the PS5, but a PS4, still the PS4, which means that Sony plans on selling the PS5 at a loss and then making money through just the games. Microsoft hasn't said anything about selling the Xbox 2 at a loss, which could also be the reason why the PS5 will be more powerful than the Xbox 2 if those leaks are correct. Also, both consoles will support cloud gaming. So Microsoft's Project xCloud will let you play any Xbox game from anywhere, PC, mobile, tablet, anything you want, while Sony's PlayStation Remote will be getting some improvements as well, alongside Sony's game streaming service, PlayStation Now. Okay, so which one would you pick and why? I kind of want to try both, and I'll probably try both, but I prefer simplicity, so I won't be using two systems at the same time. And since I already have a PS4 Pro, I'll get a PS5. But yeah, let me know in the comments which one would you pick and why. And definitely subscribe, notifications if you want to see more detailed tech videos and leaks and rumors episodes such as this one and more PS5 and Xbox 2 related videos in the future. But yeah, thank you for watching. This was pretty much it. This was a really interesting video to make, so I hope you guys like it. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.